want to start with a little bit of a warm-up. Many of you may know that over this past weekend back in England was the 75th Platinum Jubilee, the 75 years of the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, known in the UK as the Platyjubes. So we want to have a little bit of a royal theme for a few of our sessions, a few of our topics here, but let's kick off. Well, actually, before we go, there's one other important matter we need to establish. We need to establish the buzzing system. So I need to establish a buzzing sound for each of you, and so I can decide who wants to answer the question. So Trent, let's hear your buzz. Okay, that's you, Marisol?
Can we have like the crowd interact and bring them into, because I have a table full of people that.
So you're gonna. So this is unusual. So Marisol would like to outsource her buzzing to the.
Yes. Who wants to be my buzzer?
All right, buzz. If you feel the need to buzz before Charles, then perhaps
I'll buzz in.
Okay, yeah. And what's your buzz?
I guess I'll go with
Very good. Yeah. So we've got buzz. Great. Okay.
Mine's buzz.
yeah.
So the first question to kick us off.
No, I retract that.
Which of the following does the Queen of England own more of? Does she own more Corgis? Or does she own more Rolls Royces? Yeah, okay.
Corgis.
You say Corgis. The answer is, so she has a fleet of 3 Rolls Royce.
Oh, she's got to have more than that.
3 Mercedes-Benz. This is the royal, official royal fleet. 3 Mercedes-Benz, 2 Bentleys, and 2 Corgis. So I'm afraid I've got to penalize Trent.
I'm already in the negative, aren't I?
Minus, obviously, for the Platyjubes, 75. So 75 off the club. Don't worry, Trent. There's plenty of time to make it up. We do have a bonus question. How many Corgis has the Queen had in her life?
Oh my goodness.
That's a long life.
Anyone who want to buzz?
Yeah, I'll go with it. Let's go with 50.
50. You said 50. No, let's do this one Price is Right style. Right, so you say 50. What do you say?
10.
10?
That's a tough one right there. 9.
9. He's taking the $1 approach, basically.
$1, Bob.
9, 10, 9, 50, 10, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually, it's hard to judge, but the estimated amount is believed to be 30. So I think by the rules of Price is Right, Marisol actually wins that run, right? Because it's closest. So Marisol picks up 30 points. By the way, she has bred Corgis. It's from the same line since the 1930s. And the Queen has apparently also invented the Dorgi, which is a Dachshund Corgi mix. A little bit of extra trivia there. Apparently it's delicious. No, I'm sorry. Okay, round 2. We move a little bit more into some industry topics here. And we have asked our panelists to each supply an image around innovation to do with what's happening in the industry right now. So this is a kind of a round where we get to hear from each, reflecting on what they've shown and telling us what example of innovation in this current context of supply chain disruption, inventory issues we're facing. So the first, I went back. We have another trivia question, because we've taken away the next slide screen thing here so that you couldn't cheat. So I have to remember this a little bit more. Okay, we have another bonus question. We have another question here because on the topic of supply chain disruption. So as the question said, what's the total global production loss due to semiconductor shortages since January 21? Vehicle production's lost in production since 2021, January 21. Anyone want to buzz?
Price is Right rules.
Let's do Price is Right rules. I think that's a good idea. We make them up as we go. So Trent?
I'll go first. 2 trillion.
2 trillion?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, in units.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, not in.
I would say 2 million.
2 million. Saying 2 million lost globally. Marisol?
5 million.
5 million lost globally. Steve
gonna
probably
go with
knows at least how many Nissan lost.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 8 million.
8 million, 8 million. The calculated current, according to Auto Forecast Solutions, is 12.2 million.
Wow.
12.2 million lost. Steve picks up here. Yeah. I think we have to eliminate some. Yeah, Steve does win. That's coming closest there.
I feel like 12
I'll tell you what,
more,
we'll give him
Yeah, shouldn't it be?
120 on a kind of basis of cutting a few rules.
Chris has to do the math after this, so.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so lots of disruption. And that brings us to the topic of disruption. So I want to start, Kurt, you supplied our first image, Trent. Kurt was on the panel on November, I don't know where, traveled in time. Trent, we asked everyone to supply us a panel to do, a picture relative to the disruption phase and innovation around it. This is what Trent provided us. So Trent, talk us through what we see here.
Yeah, long story short, I think what we see in the industry, we've seen a lot of people addressing this topic, which is what I would term as meeting the customer where they're at. A lot of times it's the customer's customer in our perspective, but it's understanding that what we're trying to develop and have brought to market, which is the platform that's omni-channel. So sometimes a consumer will drive towards a direct-to-consumer model. Sometimes they'll want some sort of hybrid with the dealership or go direct to the dealership. So the idea here, obviously, is taking in that network effect of about 1.5 million VINs that we're touching, and the industry's touching much more than that, and leveraging data, all these buzzwords that you see on here that are marketing buzzwords. But from a pragmatic perspective, is optimizing that network to understand what are the customer's needs and how do you meet the customer where they're at, right? And that includes the logistics part, the title and registration, and all the way through. So that's basically what you see here with some fancy buzzwords and artwork.
Great. So integrating, obviously, that picks up on so many of the topics that we've talked about the last 2 days. That definitely is going to get Trent out of the negative here, I'm happy to say. If my maths are right, so we're going to get 100 points there, Trent. Okay, the next image
Right.
is from Steve Jernigan. Steve, talk us through what we see here.
So obviously the last few years has been a challenge, not only building cars, but actually moving them by whatever means, right? Boat, truck, rail. So a lot of things have changed, right? So we've done a lot of different things to try to support our partners, whether it's dedicated trucks, looking at drive-away programs. We've also integrated some of the other networks that maybe in the past weren't there, such as the auction used car networks and wedge trucks, looking at different types of conveyance systems to be able to support. Not so much the U-Haul truck, but definitely looking at options to try to move vehicles to the customer, which used to seem easy. Obviously, it's changed drastically. Even with a low SAR, it's still a challenge. So I think for us, the different conveyance methods, and then as we talked a little bit, is how do we improve efficiency, right? So the other thing on the right is really how do we help our haul-away carriers, right? You've heard geobank and other things, but some of that we control, such as our dealerships. How do we make sure that they're open 24/7 and allow for more fluid flow on weekends and nights? So we were probably, before COVID, STI, which is basically a drop-off subject to inspection, was probably less than 10%, and now we're at 80%. So really trying to drive some of the inefficiency out of the network.
Great. Again, so really, some ways to address the inefficiency, towards new equipment solutions around these topics. Talked about 80% there, so I think that's definitely putting Steve up another 80. Well done.
That axle's going to have a problem on that train.
Finally, Marisol.
We've heard about ETA, I think almost in every single session that we've had, and it's, although we keep repeating, it just shows that ETA management is a very, very hot topic. It's critically important. At the end of the day, we want to give the end customer what they want, which is a better understanding of when they're going to get their vehicle, where it is in the pipeline, how long it's going to take, especially when they're waiting. Some of these, or most of these, have already been pre-sold prior to the unit even getting on a vessel, just straight out of production. So for us here at Glovis, we have put together an app which, for those auto haulers that are in here, I'm sure the word app and Glovis and yet another app is a challenge that everyone is facing. We do understand that there are multiple apps being created as we all lead towards an initiative to better provide visibility, but it is a process. It's something that we're learning and we're creating and we're developing with the feedback from everyone that we get. So we hope that this app brings better visibility to our carriers, allows us to track damages when they're caught immediately. The driver can take pictures, unload and upload the vehicles in the VINs while they're on the app, and that then gives us visibility to what's going on to then give our OEMs that last bit of information that they need to tell their dealership, and then in turn tell the customer what's going on with their vehicle. So although it is a learning process that we're still going through, and like Kevin mentioned earlier from Toyota, it's a challenge, but we're all kind of taking our own perspective on it, and we should be excited for the chaos, excited to find solutions and hopefully get feedback from one another to improve and get to a point where we don't have 50 million apps required to give that visibility to our customers.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think this focus of one on ETA management, as we've heard throughout the event, including from Darren Acker from Glovis in the last session and related to the VPC, is super important to improving it. Good as well to acknowledge the challenges of getting drivers and users to use the technology or use it in efficient ways. So I think Marisol certainly gets a good 80 for the app initiative, but we'll deduct their 22 because that's how many apps I think it takes to deliver a car in the current climate. So there's still a good score. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as is often the case sometime in this industry. But a great set of initiatives as we heard throughout. So our next round, we'll need to revert to our buzzing system again here. We're going to show an image, and we're going to ask our contestants to buzz in and tell us what the image, which industry trend or challenge it is relating to. So here it is. Yeah.
Moving vehicles.
Moving vehicles is one guess. This is a particular type of vehicle. There's something about it which is perhaps slightly different to some of the others. Anyone else want to guess what topic we want to talk about now?
More oversized vehicles.
Ooh, oversized. I think that's interesting as well.
Buzz?
Yeah.
I would say, even though this is not an EV vehicle, with the overweight situation that we're kind of all looking at, getting these vehicles on a trailer, in a rail car, and what that would look like with an overweight situation.
It's a very green car.
I think Rich is that they've actually all said answers which are better than our own, better than the real answer. Because in fact we were trying to drive that same sustainability here, because this is of course a pre-ICE vehicle. This is an ice age vehicle, I guess you can say, without a combustion engine. So going in there, but in that basis, we're definitely giving everybody some points and deducting us points. So let's give Steve an extra 20. Let's give Trent 100 to get him back in the race, and let's give Marisol 35, just so that Rich can't figure out what I'm doing back there. So, but yeah, but it's all related, right? I mean, in fact, to EV, we had topics around overweight vehicles, managing that, and the sustainability side. So, but if we take sustainability, or the challenges around that, be that EV, I would like to hear from our panelists just how you're dealing with this topic right now in your supply chain. Start with you.
Sure, great. So as far as EV, I think the first focus for us is infrastructure, especially as we look to. Obviously, you talked about the capital and the expansion domestically for us to really move over into a percentage of BEV vehicles. So I think infrastructure at our ports to support short term as well as our plants. It's probably our biggest focus, and then obviously working with our partners to understand what does that look like in transportation and in charging needs. So infrastructure, I think, is where we're focused the most right now. We do have experience, obviously, with a Leaf, right? It was probably the first electric vehicle to market here in the States. So lots of experience with electric vehicles, but I think growing that volume and making sure we can support the density is going to be the challenge.
Yeah. And of course, as we talked about with Chris yesterday, big investments coming from Nissan side obviously very much needs the vehicle logistics and supply chain network to grow with it and address issues like overweight in vehicles and the dimensions that we've been talking about.
I think the last thing I'd probably add is also we're investing in technologies as well, right? So steady state, solid state, what does the battery look like in the next few years? So I think many OEMs are doing the same thing, right? So there's not only for the infrastructure, but what does that look like from maybe even a battery in the future as well?
Mm-hmm. Trent, what from Acertus' point of view, what approach are you taking to reduce emissions and increase sustainability in the supply chain?
There's a lot we can all do here in the ESG space. So the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is the inefficiencies we have throughout all of our networks, right? The more scale we have, the network effect on both sides, whether it's supply side or demand side, the more efficient, in theory, things should get as we continue to integrate. It's always a big challenge there, but our focus for our customers is more of a consultative or network optimization approach to understand where, I come from the freight side for about 20 years, and we used to joke that we were hauling sailboat fuel. But deadheading, passing each other in the night and deadheading, and there's a ton of inefficiencies throughout that space. So that's number one, and then obviously as you look at the different dynamics involved in EV development and weight and load factors and understanding, it was mentioned earlier today, right, in the session, is this transportation ready? Is this vehicle transportation ready? And that's oftentimes an afterthought. There are the new Hummer that's come out, 9,000 pounds. It is a giant vehicle. For those of you that haven't seen it, it's fantastic. But that is a very complex move. You start thinking about all the final mile deliveries and box trucks and oversized equipment out there. Those are all adding to the challenges in what we do. So once again, it's back to that understanding the network optimization, where are we going, where are the OD pairs, where's the demand sitting, and where's the capacity sitting. And I was talking to many of the carriers here in the audience on how we partner more strategically to understand where the densities are, to then start mapping our densities together, even with a lot of what we do here for the panelists, so or the contestants, sorry,
yes.
Up here. So that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Marisol, what about from Glovis side?
Well, since we heard quite a bit from Charles already on EV and kind of building to get ready to that, I took a little bit of a different perspective on sustainability and kind of thought of sustainable logistics and what we're doing moving forward to kind of leave a less of a footprint on what we're doing. As many of you might already know, Hyundai Motor has a hydrogen-powered fuel cell tractor. It's currently out in Switzerland, and there is a NorCal project that will be coming to California in 2023. It is set to have, I believe it's going to be 30 tractors up in the Port of Oakland. So kind of looking at a different perspective and how we can build a sustainable future with the technology that we're looking into right now.
Absolutely.
Chris, one data point I failed to mention, as we're going out there and talking to carriers and understanding what their demands are, we've seen this flat rate of the average utilization of a carrier or a driver's logbook still stagnant pretty much at about 7.5 to 8 hours out of 11. So it's a very inefficient space when you think about the utilization that we're doing. So that's an us problem, challenge.
Absolutely. So some great answers there. In the spirit of net carbon zero, we'll reverse the scores here. And zero is obviously is the positive score here because you got it down to zero. Everyone was close on that. So -5 for Marisol, -3 for Steve.
I thought you were going to get bonus points for that extra.
Well, no, that's bonus is.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. But we do have a bonus point. We do have a bonus point opportunity now. So we'll go Price is Right rules on this one as well. How many tons of CO2 was the U.S. transportation sector responsible for in 2021? So again, Price is Right in billions here. What do you think?
You said in billions?
Well, in the number. Well, there's the hint. It is in billions, but tell us what you think.
Is there a phone a friend or anything?
Is it the wrong game show? I think.
Yeah, I think. Tons of CO2, 200 million.
200 million. Steve?
We go,
I have no basis here.
not either. We'll go 500.
500 million. Marisol, what do you
So
think?
don't use me as a benchmark.
1 billion.
1 billion. And the answer is 1.8 metric tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. From the, and that's of course the whole transportation sector. This is passenger and commercial cars. So Marisol picks up the bonus points there with, well, I can't give you 1.8 billion upon that.
Not one though.
We'll give you again. We'll do another. We'll go back 100 on that one. So, all right. So, next round. Again, we're going to do. If we have a picture here, we're going to ask the audience. Sorry, ask the contestants to buzz on what you think we're talking about.
Buzz.
Marisol.
I would say this would be the online purchasing, that instant, go online, look for my car, hit purchase, and it being at my doorstep.
Absolutely, yes. And this is all the customer that we're trying to please the most here, I think, right now. The future customer, excellent, very good. You get some bonus points for that, for guessing that correctly. And let's start with you then, Marisol, in terms of what the online, the move towards more online sales and ordering means for Glovis, and how it's impacting, what solutions you're working on around this.
Yeah, so in my role currently in business development, we are having conversations with all of these new OEMs that are coming into the market, completely different structures and business strategies than legacy OEMs. I used to be with Honda for a total of 7 years, so I was with a legacy OEM that already had processes in place, the structure, and all of these new EV companies that are coming in are missing that piece. They have a big idea, but there's still components of their business that are missing. So it's kind of led to a learning process where we learn their business, we try to optimize their business and provide them solutions that fit what they are looking for, because they are very unique in the sense that what was standard before might not be well fit for them. So just for an example, Finn, who is actually an automotive subscription company in the East Coast, they're based in Germany. They are this example per se. They are not an OEM because they basically purchase vehicles from OEMs and then do a short-term subscription, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months. But the vehicle is set to be a short-term lease that they bundle up and provide to the customer. So the customer doesn't have to do anything with the DMV. They kind of mitigate all that and just provide the vehicle for them. So that is a partner that we're working with out of Philadelphia, and we've had to kind of cater to that that whole business strategy that they have within our port operations to get the vehicles ready for the customer and then delivering basically a white glove delivery to them. So it's been a very interesting process to learn, and I don't think that they will be the only customers in the future. I'm sure we'll see many more with all of these new EV companies that are coming out.
And that's as a white glove service that's then delivered often to their home, sort of directly
Correct.
to where they are in a single unit.
Yeah, some have that last mile solution that we have to kind of cater out and look for partners to provide that last mile portion for them.
Yeah, okay, excellent case study example. Trent, how do you see rise of online ordering in automotive impacting on the areas of service that you're focused on?
Yeah, it's really the trend of digital retailing. So that's been a little bit more pervasive, obviously, in the wholesale or remarketing side of the business. So we service, we've got 58 facilities across the U.S. and Canada where we're doing the white glove delivery for a lot of these digital platforms out there that publicly traded or otherwise. So we've had to build up this network of facilities, actually change that because we did support fleet management companies out there for the big entities that they support. But what the change that we see here is a new dynamic when you layer on a remarketing versus an OE. It's a new car. And what happens with the miles? You can't drive that. Our drivers can't physically get in these cars and drive them. So you've got to get a network dense enough, and then you can provide, whether it's be flatbed or wedge trailers that get into residential zones. And then you've got to get a scheduling component because you're dealing with a consumer. So sometimes consumers want to meet it at your facility, sometimes they want to meet it at a dealership, or sometimes they want to meet it in their driveway. So you've got to land that vehicle just as all of you schedule services to your home, whether it be your pests or AC, HVAC repairmen. You've got a 2-hour window that you've got to deliver that we're servicing to. So once again, it's continued layers of complexity that are adding from a direct-to-consumer model. But I think a lot of this is kind of maybe built and structured already from a remarketing perspective. And it's really how do you leverage, whether they're assets or the network facilities, to really service those customers. And then it's the customer experience, because ultimately you want a bespoke offering, and you need to, with an EV, there typically needs to be a new car orientation at that driveway. It's not as easy as dropping off a car because people don't know how to use the vehicle. So once again, it's another added layer of training, learning and development there.
Okay, great examples of things that are already starting to happen and seen, as you said, taking advantage as well of a network which is there, but lots more to develop. Steve, I know certainly during COVID, Nissan was selling cars online. We talked yesterday a bit with Chris Stiles as well. How do you see the move to online, and how are you preparing your network to respond to
Obviously, Nissan at Home, I think, was launched almost over a year ago, and it's been a huge success. We've sold thousands of cars now, tens of thousands digitally. So it's been a big piece of our growth and our future, right? Even how we advertise and reach those customers has changed. So it'll continue to be a big piece of how we move forward. As far as logistically, we still have the dealerships. One of the things we have an advantage of is obviously we have lots of dealers geographically, right? There's over around 1,200 dealerships, right? So it gives us, kind of a reach deep into the communities where our dealerships can be our face, and they own that relationship and that last mile piece of it with the consumer. Because it's not just about the delivery, right? It's about the service, what it's like in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, because we want that customer back, right? So I think it's been huge. We'll continue to leverage our dealership network and their expertise from a customer service standpoint. But it'll continue to grow and be a big piece of what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody is already, this is not a future topic. Everybody has good examples of things that they're doing, changes that are coming. We'll give Steve
You're winning right now, Marisol.
50 right there.
You did the math.
Yeah.
Trent 75, and Marisol will get up another 60 on that one. So
Marisol's in the lead.
Marisol's got a bit of lead, but there's plenty of time. She picked up those bonus points. And another bonus round here. Again, with Price is Right style here. What were total U.S. e-commerce sales? This is not just automotive, obviously. Just what do you think the total U.S. commerce sales in U.S. dollars were in 2021? Trent.
Not just finished vehicle?
No, not just finished. This is total economy. This is all e-commerce sales.
Oh, man. Maybe, I don't really have a basis here for e-commerce. Maybe 1.5 trillion?
Okay, 1.5 trillion. Marisol?
5 trillion.
5 trillion. 5 trillion. And Steve?
I'm going to go with, that's big numbers. I'm
Might
going to go with
overshot
500
that
billion.
500 million.
Billion.
500 billion. Steve, you definitely take it. Close there. 871 billion last year sold online. So Steve is definitely picking up. Let's do 87.1 bonus points.
I might take it.
And here's a little extra though. What do you think? What do you think the figure was in 2015? How has it grown? Do a little quick round on that. So if it was 800 plus last year, what do you think it was in 2015?
80 billion.
80 billion?
I'm going to say 40.
40 billion.
Yeah.
We go with 100.
100. was 500 billion. So it's grown a lot still. I mean, it hasn't quite grown as much as that, but clearly a big growth there. So you would have won that one again, though, wouldn't you, Steve?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, you would. All right. I'll give you an extra 10 for that.
Carry
How
the
about
one.
10.5, just because?
10.9, make it easier.
All right, so round 5. Again, we're going back to the picture, a picture around here. What are we talking about?
Buzz.
I'll turn.
I think I did give Trent on that one.
Gas prices.
Gas prices, high price of gas. That's absolutely right. Trent, you pick up $50 worth of gas, which I think is 2 gallons in California today. So, okay, high fuel prices, price of fuel. This is one, obviously, that affects everyone. Trent, let's start with you. Solutions. I mean, clearly we can, short of telling OPEC to produce more. What solutions are you working on with your customers to address high fuel prices?
Yeah, 2 different things come to mind, obviously. Once again, back to the network optimization. So how do we understand getting the right equipment at the right time? You might not need a 9 or 10 car hauler in a specific location, and bringing in something like a wedge or a single might be more advantageous. Pulling in, adequate fuel surcharge programs. The way I look at it is, how do we help provide for the carrier networks out there that are really feeling the pain here? Obviously, that flows upstream into every one of us, including our personal and professional lives. But providing that as a more transparent pass-through to understand what the fuel surcharge programs are in place, and are those adequate to provide back to those carriers. And then internally, the way another adjacent point here, obviously, is in all of our businesses here, all of our partners or employees are faced with these additional inflationary pressures, not just in the gas prices, but inflationary pressures. So what can we do to help alleviate that? And that's another big push that I spend my time thinking about, on how do I help our partners be successful in an inflationary environment.
So some great answers there. Steve, how are you working with your partners on high fuel prices?
We're paying a lot more, that's for sure. Obviously, it's uncontrollable, right? It's an unfortunate part of the market situation we're in. But I think we are getting funding now to look at different solutions. I think Kurt and Sharman highlighted there. We're going to look at using some different alternative fuel trucks, maybe, especially in maybe high-price states like California. So really getting funding to look at different solutions for moving vehicles. And I know Kurt talked about, there are efficient modes like rail that burn a lot less fuel. So really looking at, how can we shift product and try to minimize the impact where we can. I think long term, right, you come down into, localization discussions, right? Where do you build, with fuel uncontrollables, tariffs, other things, right? All these pressures and cost, does it change where we source in the next 5 years? And do we bring things closer to our plant? So I think we'll continue to see changes and things shift to maybe hedge against some of these risks that have basically been uncontrollable for the last 2 years.
So obviously some significant long-term impacts there, right down to the actual decision-making in the supply chain, locations, operations.
Definitely. I think, I know this is a finished vehicle side, but you think about, in parts, right? I mean, we're hundreds of millions, like most OEMs, probably in just buffered parts that we can't build vehicles with, right? So, I mean, all these pressures and costs, I think are going to probably change how we look at the total cost of a vehicle when we make that decision.
Yeah. So some great answers on network optimization, use of alternative equipment, funding, and even changing the supply chain ultimately. Marisol.
Okay, I will have to agree. It's not called cheating. It's called agreeing. Network optimization is definitely something that we're looking at as we work with several different OEMs and all of our auto haul carriers. It is definitely a benefit to take a step back and look at our network and how we can better supply our auto haulers with loads out of different areas, make sure that they're not dead hauling anywhere. If there's freight somewhere that we can pick up from somewhere else, I think that component is key to playing and kind of getting with the with the changes that we're seeing with the rising fuel. Localization definitely, again, is another aspect that we look at, especially with all of these new EV companies that are coming out. If we can make any recommendation based on our experience, it would be for them to really look at where they're going to set up their dealers, their stores, because a lot of them are not an actual dealer footprint. They're more of like a Tesla Lucid pop-up store where they'll have a vehicle or two. So if they're going to have those stores, make sure that they're in areas where we have a footprint and we can kind of minimize those costs. So I would definitely agree with both on network optimization and localization of those future stores.
Absolutely. So clear examples how we can improve it. None of you mentioned, and I think it was also said yesterday, I think that, fuel surcharges are what they are, and you have to pay them through. But as a kind of extra, are you working, Steve, for example, your carriers asking for more dynamic approaches to that, given we've seen this rise happen sometimes much quicker than we would have expected, has seen in recent years.
I think there's such variation in it, they want more real time.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is it's not changing a nickel a month or something, it's changing 50 cents overnight, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's not that it's the fuel surcharge program is probably broken, it's more that it's not timely enough to really supplement the large swings. We've never seen this, right? Overnight. So I think that's the challenge. So we are doing different things, right? You got different indexes. There's just different states, right? California versus Tennessee is a big difference. So there's a lot of different challenges, and then you get into how do you pay it, right? How do you, if it's a mileage-based, percentage-based, so there's a lot of complexity in fuel surcharges, which the team's working on trying to figure out. But I think it's just, how can you, what they want to be is paid for the fuel they have to pay for at the time they get the fuel where they're at, right? And that's not the system we have right now.
Yeah, it's a big challenge from a fuel surcharge perspective because there are so many in our space. When you look at the freight environment, it's much more standardized and much more just pegged and a sliding scale. But to your point, right, it's the carriers want to get or need to get the money immediately based on a dynamic. So if it's a spot rate, obviously a flat rate, that's what you're paying. You're paying real-time rates on that fuel. Yet the contracts might not be catching up to that, and there's fuel and everything, right? I saw an article this morning about Lululemon costing more because they use petroleum in most of the clothes they produce. So I think it's not even just at the gas level, but it's the tire manufacturing, it's the products that go into the vehicles and things. So.
Yep, absolutely. Huge inflationary aspect there, but and as we highlighted, challenges that touch many parts of what we do. You've all given great answers and solutions. I think here Steve maybe nudges it out as the car maker, looking really to that opportunity to change the network and make different sourcing and production decisions. So we'll edge out there. We'll give you, Steve, we'll give you 45. Trent's really strong answers there with 35. Marisol, you're picking up 30 as well. So we got a couple of bonus rounds coming now too.
Very strong.
I'm figuring out your scoring. So.
Are you? Uh-oh. You have to tell me how it works afterwards, actually.
Yeah.
So bonus question here. Baseless looked up this morning. What's to fill up the average car, calling it 15-gallon tank, based on U.S. national average gas prices, so not California, the U.S. national average, which probably you don't have in your head, or you might. So yes, I heard a buzz.
I think it was $4.95-ish as the U.S. I've been at this conference, so it's probably over $5 right now. But that would be $75.
Yeah, so that's definitely a pick up, and we'll give a Price is Right opportunity down the line just to see if anyone wants to match or go above or below.
75 or 1.
Average car is a little tricky based on the region and the area.
Well, I get it. I've cheated and just called it a 15-gallon.
I would say 65.
I'm going to go with 71.
So I think although Price is Right, no. I think although Price is Right style would eliminate it, Trent is getting the 74.4 on this one because he's pretty much. I think you had it off 1 cent, it was $4.96 or something like that. So you'll pick up this one. So an extra.
What's the average price today? Anybody know in the audience?
0.4
this morning.
Dollars. In fact, you get that in hard currency actually, and a fuel surcharge at the end of the quarter. But we've got another little bonus on that. So if you were to fill up that same car back in the UK, how much would it be?
Buzz, I would say 80.
80.
Yeah.
So 74 in the US, 80 in the UK. But we're talking dollars, not sterling, by the way. We won't do it. So in dollars. So Marisol says 80. Trent?
105.
Steve, what do you think?
I'm going to say 90.
90. 129. So, yeah.
It's the leaders that threw me.
And now times that across the Queen's fleet of Rolls-Royce and Bentleys. So, but I think that who put up the highest one there? I think it was Trent.
Yeah.
So Trent will pick up another. Well, so you got $74, and we'll add another £30 on top of that. So please convert that in the back into points. £30 sterling.
Dollar's pretty strong right now.
Dollar is very strong, actually. It's, I think, 120 or something. California's feeling very expensive for us right now, that's for sure. Okay, round 6. Coming into one of our closing rounds. Again, back to the picture. Any buzzes?
Bzz. The great term is people leaving your company,
Exodus.
the great resignation.
The great resignation, that's right. So the talent shortage, great resignation, call it what you will, that of course is great, much talked about and something of a global phenomenon. Trent, you'll pick up another 40 for that. So catching up, I think, by that basis. So, but Trent, why don't you talk to us? I mean, how are you seeing in an area you're focusing on talent shortages? How are you seeing it, and what are solutions to address it?
Yeah, so the grass isn't always greener. I think we've started to see that happen. Obviously, people have been promoted, and that's great when you're a leader and you have people within your organization that get promoted outside or internally. That's fantastic. But I think just there's flexibility that we've offered out to our partners, and people don't necessarily want to work from home. They want flexibility is what I've found. So how do we add flexibility? I'm a big in-person individual, so how do we get people back in the office and want to be back in the office to create those bonds and create those relationships? And I was speaking at a different conference, and somebody asked me this question, and I said, well, have you ever made a best friend over for Zoom? And nobody raised their hand because nobody's made a best friend over Zoom, or very few people have made best friends over Zoom. So I think obviously people are going to leave. That's capitalism. That's how our economy works. But how do you provide, a gainful employment, and you might not be the best paying person out there because Apples and Googles can always outlast you there. But providing flexibility in what they need, I think, is where we're driving towards, and trying to help them with that balance of flexibility. And then meaningful purpose, so trying to provide them with purpose rather than coming in and doing widgets and doing the same thing over and over again, is how do you tie to the corporate goals, and whether those be ESG oriented or financially oriented. That sense of purpose is important, I see, for at least for myself.
Purpose, flexibility and purpose, these are certainly key things that I hope would address that shortage. Some great responses there. Marisol, what about from Glovis?
Yeah, I have to agree that flexibility is one of the key points to touch on. Obviously, wage is really important. We all want to make and earn a fair wage, but that isn't always what seals the deal. Having that flexibility, being innovative in what we're giving back to our employees is critical. And those of you that have been in an operational role, I was an operations supervisor when I first got out of college. It is really difficult to provide flexibility in an operational role where your task and your job requires you to be somewhere at a very specific time. It could be a first shift, second shift, night shift. That is really hard to give that flexibility, give your employees a sense of balance with their life and their work and their job. So we kind of have to be really creative to make sure that we touch upon not just the salary and the wages of our employees, but also providing them a balance, empowerment to feel that they have a role in the company, not just a task, and giving them that flexibility to kind of have the ability to have a balance within their life. And I know for auto haulers, that is something that's also really difficult. Many of them want to be home every day, and for those longer distances, it's almost impossible to do if they're traveling several different miles or hundreds of miles every day. And I remember last year, I believe at this conference, one of the items that was touched upon was during COVID, there was a really difficult time for auto haulers because everything was closed. They didn't even have access, let's say, to a restroom somewhere for a rest stop. That was something I think that we would all expect when we kind of want to have a break. There was nowhere for them to go, so having stations or acknowledging the fact that at the end of the day, they're just a human being that want to take a break before they continue with their job. They're all different aspects that kind of have to be taken into consideration outside of just a raise or a promotion. So I think it's something we have to continue working on, and the discussion of wage is not the only one on the table.
Yeah. You heard it, Charles. Steve?
Yeah, I think, obviously this challenge is not just automotive, right? It's industry-wide across multiple industries. And I think it was 11 million job openings in the U.S. last month. So, I mean, there's just a lot of need. So retention, I think, is something that we've really tried to shift and focus on. How do we keep the folks we have, right? And we're doing the same things we've talked about, right? Whether it's flexible, obviously manufacturing may look different, but how do you have flexibility in manufacturing too? There's different things we can do from a scheduling perspective or shifts, but I think retention is huge, and we've kind of pivoted and said, what makes you stay, right? So money is a piece, but there's other things people stay for, and as we find that out, how do we grow that culture, and really trying to retain the people we have, and like you said, there's so many pieces of why people leave, but we have started to see, many folks come back, which has been huge. When you see somebody may leave for an Amazon or some other company, that is, if they're a great employee, you bring them back in, and it's just a huge sign of the culture you have. So I think we're seeing things shift a little bit, but we're doing all the creative things we can do. We are paying more in places we need to pay more, and we're trying to, not be in a box, right? I know you like to come into work. Not everybody does. So, how do we not set parameters and try to meet all the different needs? And then, retention is key right now.
Interesting point too. If they've left and come back, then there's benefits to gain from that too, right? What do they bring back in? If maybe a career automotive goes, tries another industry for a while, comes back in with a different perspective. So there's opportunities in these changes as well. A huge challenge. Everybody's got some great points there. So we'll give 10s across the board. Marisol, you get a bonus for looking out for the truckers. 75 feet. Is that the rig these days? 75 feet or 80 feet? I can't remember what it is. So we'll give you an extra points on that. And then there's some chance to pick up some more. What is the average age of professional truck drivers in the U.S.?
55.
55? Marisol?
50.
50?
58.
58. Those are the numbers I had in my head. The research that Rich came back with was actually 48. It was a little bit younger than I thought, but maybe hopefully it's a sign that it's getting a little bit younger. So you all went, I think you all went a bit above it. By Price is Right rules, you don't get any points. And
like 50. That was
with
pretty close.
So let's before we go to the final score, we'll do a little kind of bonus last question, a parting thought, because we're obviously bringing with as well as the scores, and let me try to block your own, because I think the comfort screen is going to reveal it for, and I want it to be a surprise for them as well. Tell just some parting thoughts as we're also ending the conference here. What is the most important takeaway for you? Who do you want your partners to help prepare when we look for 2023 in this time of disruption? And we'll start with you on that trend.
I think it's just the collaboration, right? There's a lot of change. Change is evident. It happens all at once. As Sid mentioned yesterday, right? It takes a long time to change, but it happens all at once. I think taking and just understanding a different perspective, Marisol just mentioned it, is taking a step back and just looking at your network, looking at what we provide to our consumers or customers over time, and understanding that the way that we've always done things might not work tomorrow. So I think just generally that open-minded perspective here, because a lot of times we've been doing, you know, the same thing over and over again, and it's worked great. Steve mentioned it earlier. It used to just be easy to pick a 9-car up and deliver it to a dealership or several dealerships, but that's just not the perspective any longer. And I think that that will be pervasive. I don't think that this is going to go away. I think we're all clamoring for the same capacity out there, and there's a finite resource there of capacity, and I think it's just that open-mindedness. Yeah.
Fantastic. Spotting thoughts, Marisol, for your customers and partners in succeeding in 2023.
I would have to say that we are definitely looking towards building relationships and partnerships with everybody that we work with. I think we even had a comment from someone that said, you know, the experience that we have with Glovis is so much more than just transactional. So definitely from us, we really want to make sure that there's communication back and forth, whether it's good or bad, it's constructive criticism. What are we doing, or what could we do more to make sure that we're keeping those relationships not just for a short time period, not for just spot moves, but really looking forward to building long-term relationships, have contractual relationships that help us build and keep that stability while we're experiencing all of these disruptions with the supply chain. Because having a partner that you can call when, let's say, you have just a bubble of production that just came out, and having that someone that you can call that will say, you know, I'm going to try to do everything in my power to get that moving, get that going. I think that's extremely critical to have, and that's the type of relationship that we're working on and hoping for with our carriers, our partners, and with our customers.
Fantastic. Steve?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's hard to believe we're moving to year 3 of just variability and unpredictability, but you know, that will change at some point, right? I mean, things are going to come back to some type of normality, whether that's labor, parts, whatever it may be. I think, you know, from a partner perspective, we've got to get back to, you know, making investments, working towards the future, right? I think, you know, it's no longer build it, they will come. It's wait and see what happens, and then let's go address it, right? So the problem with that is we see what happens now, right, where we're at. We're at a 12, 13 million, you know, TIV, and we're struggling to move cars when we moved 18 million years ago. So at some point we have to have confidence in the market and where it's heading, and make investments that both have risk on both sides, right? I think everybody's in a model right now where I'm so afraid to do anything, I want 100% guarantee and a risk-free solution. It's just not business, right? So you see new companies coming into play, people bringing solutions. I think that'll continue to happen, but I think, you know, we have to start building and being ready for the change, whether it's EVs, whether it's, you know, growing volume, getting back to 17, 18 million TIV, but it has to start happening. If we keep waiting, we're going to continue to see the disaster we see right now with, you know, when you do have a car available, it's still very difficult, right? I mean, ETA is something I've heard for, you know, I hate to say it, many sessions, and there's all kind of tools for ETA, right? I mean, there's all kind of apps, there's suppliers, there's great suppliers here that have great tools. But the problem is there's not, you know, we've got to get back to discipline in the supply chain, right? So, you know, my railroad doesn't know the ETA, my haulaway carrier doesn't know the ETA, you know, they don't transparently share information, right? I plan for rail cars tomorrow and they don't show up. They don't show up Wednesday. You know, 2,000 units, I have to change the ETA. You know, I don't know the visibility to ramp with Ford and Toyota, and you know, Amazon's not worried about when the Walmart package is going to come, but if I'm at a ramp, we're all using the same resources. So, you know, if my haulaway carrier is going to move Toyota and put me back a few days, you know, I don't know that, right? So, you know, the problem with ETA is it's not available, but it changes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, because in the end, we're not driving the same thing. So we need discipline. We need to be focused on the same thing, which is the delivery date, and how do we attain it? No longer of how do we report the news, right? I think that's the thing with ETA. It's basically, it's a reactive notion, right? We're going to tell somebody 5, 6, 7, 8 times, here's the next time your car comes. At some point, it's a guess, right? So I think we've got to shift back to that, you know, to that discipline, to where we can get to that kind of predictability and consistent service, and really move forward. I think that's, and that's what you're hearing a lot of communication about. So for me, I think that's where I've got to see a shift, and hope that we see stability and some changes and at least some normal parts, and I understand that. I hear it all the time with production, right? I mean, how many units you're going to produce? Do you have parts? Blah, 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 blah. That's going to get better. We have to be ready.
It's a great message, and obviously transparency and also the discipline to both share also when it's not going well. Make sure everyone is aware of that. But I think those are some great parting thoughts from each of them. We won't add them to the final scores. They would inflate the scores too high because they were all too good. But that means we can soon reveal the final score. And perhaps can I get Vanna White back there, or at least the tall bearded Vanna White, to come join me, so we can also give out the prizes that go with that. We hid them behind the stage. There we go. So we've brought some prizes from the UK, again with our royal platyjubes theme. So we'll have some.
Are you bringing a corgi? Am I getting a corgi?
Yes, the Dorgy is yours, Marisol. Yeah, you can absolutely have it. No, yeah.
Can I just say, the bit like Chris's scoring, the game also made a lot more sense after a few old fashions. So, so if you're watching this back on demand on the website in a couple of weeks' time, sit back with a drink and enjoy it. It'll make a lot more sense.
Okay, so we have some gifts from Fortnum Masons from the UK, one of the Queen's favorite shops as well. So we can reveal, coming up in Steve with 419.6 points. I think this is our third place winner, correct? I should have clarified that, right? We don't know. Nobody knows. Okay, so I certainly haven't been adding it up here. Okay, we'll reveal them all, and then we'll give the prizes through. Steve with 419, Marisol with 403, Trent with 439. Trent, pulled it out. It was that fuel knowledge in the end, which did it.